Hey guys, this video is from our latest Rick and Johnny podcast. Make sure to check out the full podcast on blogtalkradio.com/Rick and Johnny. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know Johnny and I had fun recording it.
This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, saving your day from boredom with the best podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with fellow man-child Johnny Karlic.
Wubba-lubba-dub-dub.
And welcome back to the Rick and Johnny podcast here on mostvaluablepodcast.com or on blogtalkradio.com/Rick and Johnny. I want to thank you guys for either watching us on YouTube or listening to us today on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or Stitcher. We got a jam-packed show, another double podcast day. We got this one, plus our Beauty and the Beast review for you guys to check out. But on this podcast, Johnny, we've got a full superhero day, and we've got another sandwich here on the Rick and Johnny podcast.
Yep.
Last time it was the Marvel Disney sandwich. This is a Marvel sandwich with DC right in the middle. As we're going to talk about the Venom movie that is slated to come out in October. We're going to look at DC, their kind of movie lineup, and a little shakeup that's happening because the Batman is getting pushed back an entire year. And then we're going to kind of wrap up the show, a little bomb that was dropped on us. Michael Rosenbaum, going to be a secret role in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. We got to theorize. We got to speculate on what role he could be playing.
Who is he going to be?
In Guardians 2. But we're going to start off with Venom. We're finally getting that rated R Venom film that we've been wanting. The two kind of writers. Right now we have two writers that are scheduled to write it. We've got the Scott Rosenberg, he did Pain and Gain in Jumanji, and then we also have Jeff Pinkner, who was the writer for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So, Johnny, I'm just going to throw it off to you first. What are your first thoughts, your first speculations for Venom that we're going to get October 2018?
I really like that we're going rated R on this, just because
Sony's just continuing the theme, man. They're
just
continuing
going with the rated R. Fox did it. They did really well twice in a row. So, hey, why not? Why not start doing these violent characters rated R? We can see the full extent of what Venom wants to do. And I'm like what we read earlier before the podcast is that they don't want 100% tie it to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which will be interesting because you and I both know from the cartoons, he attaches to Spider-Man before he attaches to anyone else. So that's why he acts sort of like Spider-Man in some sense.
Well, and that's going to be, to me, that's the first thing I thought of was the origin story for it. Because the weird thing that Sony's able to do,
Yes.
that Fox is not able to do, is they can kind of link Venom to the MCU because now they have that deal with Marvel and Marvel getting Spider-Man, Sony being able to kind of pull some of that story into their own movies. And it's going to be interesting to me how they do the origin story of Venom. Because let's be honest, if you're already have Spider-Man kind of doing his thing and you're saying you're not going to have it latch on to Spider-Man at first, how are you going to do the origin story as Venom, and which Venom are we going to have? Are we going to have the one that I know a lot of people are known for and the one that I know from my childhood? Is it going to be Eddie Brock? Is he going to be the one that will be Venom in this movie?
We can even have both Flash Thompson and Eddie Brock as it, because you know what? Why not? I mean, you have both characters in the universe. You can have one be it through most of the movie, and then the symbiote gets defeated, and then latches on to Flash Thompson, one of Spider-Man's
quote unquote friends.
Well, no.
Friends,
because he's technically
kind of
his
a bully.
bully. He is his bully. So that would be an interesting twist on it, too, because now your bully is your mortal enemy, is your friend, in a sense.
That one,
the real weird dynamic right there.
The Flash Thompson one is interesting, and the thing that I heard about the Flash Thompson part of it was they already have a character in Spider-Man Homecoming that is going to be Flash Thompson. And it's going to be, to me, I kind of posed the question of, since they're not going to latch it on to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, then are they going to do the same for the Flash Gordon? Are both of Flash and Spider-Man untouchable? Thompson. Are they untouchable because they're both in Spider-Man Homecoming.
You know what? That's very possible too, because like they said, they don't want to 100% tie it to that one, but they want to have the options to say, oh yeah, it is connected to this. So yeah, maybe don't right now until you make a definitive decision. Do we want to attach it or not? Let's not use these characters right now, but we have Eddie Brock. So
we do. We have Eddie, the ones that I'm looking at and the kind of Venoms that we know of. The first one everyone knows that, Spider-Man. Then there's Eddie Brock. The Mac Gargan, who was Scorpion.
True.
He also has a run as being Venom in the comics. Then we have Flash Thompson, and we also have Lee Price as well as our kind of main hosts that everyone knows of as the big ones for Venom. The one that everyone knows of. The one that I think of, if you're going to say, Ricky, who is Venom, I'm going to say Eddie Brock. And
yeah, that's the first one I go with too.
I'm going to put you in the writer's chair, though. You are one of the writers for Venom right now. How are you doing the plot? If you had to write the plot for Venom, how are you doing it?
Let's say we're going rated R. We're not tying it 100% to the Tom Holland one. We want to stay away from those. I'm going to say that we make the symbiote want to emulate Spider-Man. So we have maybe Eddie Brock or one of these other characters that we see wants to emulate Spider-Man. And then we can throw a Spider-Man in there and not have it specifically Tom Holland and kind of puts him down because it's like, no, let me do it. You're not doing this right. Because the symbiote doesn't know. It's an alien. And hopefully we get the right story. It's an alien symbiote. Thank you. That takes over a host in order to do this stuff. Well, the symbiote kind of works with the host, sometimes takes over. So it's not going to know what's customary on Earth. And therefore, it doesn't know how much it's hurting someone, how much it's not. And it just maybe like goes a little overboard. Spider-Man shuts him down in a sense of more verbally than anything. And it's like twists it into this horrible thing where it's just like, you know what? Screw Spider-Man. I'm just going to fuck everything up. And that's when we dive into rated R.
No, to me, the big thing that I think of is if you are not going, the first thing I thought of is if you are not going to go with the Spider-Man route and you're not going to have, like, it's funny, are they going to have Spider-Man in it at all? Is it going
That's
to be
a tough one.
Is it going to be something where Holland Spider-Man is kind of in it, but he's just not the host? Like the Venom symbiote doesn't take him over at all?
Yeah.
Is it going to be something where he's not in it entirely because he's dealing with everything that's going on in Infinity Wars and
Homecoming,
with the whole Marvel universe? Because here's the thing, because it's a Sony picture and not Marvel, what they could do if they want to is kind of treat it like Deadpool with the X-Men movies. Where
True.
Deadpool you got kind of like that thought of, hey, you know what? Deadpool's kind of going on while the X-Men are doing their shit. While all these other X-Men movies that we have going on right now, Apocalypse, Days of Futures Past, Supernova that we've talked about before.
Yes.
While all these movies are going on, Deadpool's kind of doing his thing. That's why we only have Colossus and Mega Teenage Warhead back at the base, because all the other X-Men are out doing their own stuff. They're out being cool and forming a team and fighting baddies, and Deadpool's just doing his own thing. I wonder if that's going to be the case. And the first thing I thought of, if you're going to have a rated R film and you're going to have Venom, who could be his villain? Carnage.
True.
Think of that. Like, because to me, I remember me and Dave Oster of the Fast Break here on Most Valuable Podcast, we had a conversation years ago, before the thought of a rated R superhero movie was actual reality. I think this was around the time of maybe Amazing Spider-Man 1, maybe even before that, maybe even like Iron Man 1 kind of days of it, where we like, because Carnage has always been one where I wanted to see Carnage on the TV screen, but the only way you could do Carnage is rated R.
Not to mention you need Venom for Carnage.
What if this is the perfect spot where we basically have Venom as our anti-hero, because Venom's not really a hero.
No.
But in this movie, he would be the hero, and Carnage is your villain.
You know, you could do it that way. It's kind of pulling away from how a lot of people see Venom, because Venom's supposed to be the straight up villain. But when you throw Carnage in there, yeah, he becomes the Carnage becomes the villain. But then you also need to, and you have those hints at Spider-Man, because you need part of the symbiote and part of Spider-Man's blood, if I remember correctly, in order to make Carnage.
And maybe they could do that, because the one thing that is interesting, and this is I'm speculating here, Johnny.
Yep,
I'm
go
tying
for
it
it
back into one of the writers is Jeff Pinkner.
Yeah.
Pinkner wrote the story for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. What if they say we are carrying over, even though it's a new Spider-Man, what if they carry over a kind of thought of, because the origin story for Spider-Man's still the same.
Yeah.
He still gets his powers the same way. The only thing that we've seen is he's kind of been doing his thing, and then Tony Stark finds him, gives him the new suit. What if we find a way that, like, by somehow this blood gets put into the hands of the symbiote, and the symbiote kind of forms with it to make the toxin that is Carnage, and it breaks into Carnage? Or what if they go completely, hey, we are not going, this is going to be totally separate than the Holland Spider-Man. This is basically going to be a continuation of the storyline that we had with the Amazing Spider-Man series.
No, it could very well be that. And another way to play off on what you said is, what company was it that Osborn?
Yeah.
What if, because we saw,
I was thinking about,
we saw the Rhino suit at the very end. We saw the Vulture. We saw a few of those suits in the bottom,
because they wanted to do
a Sinister Six before,
and their plan is to still maybe do that in the future.
It's not like, it hasn't been a lot of talk about it lately.
Well, when Marvel comes in and says we want Spider-Man, that kind of throws a wrench into everything. And
Yeah.
of course, you're going to give up Spider-Man for that paycheck.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Of course you're going to do that, but that's something that they kind of had to push to the back burner, was the Sinister Six.
So what I'm saying though is, what if they just play along with that storyline and say, hey, we had a piece of the symbiote, we eventually got some Spider-Man's blood. What if they we're gonna mix these two together and see what happens?
I mean, they could.
They could be their thing, that like, we have this Venom story going on. They get a piece of one, they get a piece of the other. They decide this thing Venom is running around. Let's try and create something to stop it. Goes horribly awry.
I mean,
And just destroys the lab, comes out. Obviously, he's got to take a host. And you know what? I don't remember Carnage's host, but I know it was supposed to be someone who is...
it was Patrick McMullen, I want to say.
Yes.
Is
but
the first one of
he's supposed to be a
Carnage.
psychopath,
Yes,
though.
a very big psychopath.
So, I mean...
which fits into Carnage.
It does, exactly. So, I mean, maybe we have someone by that name and working in the lab with a little chip on his shoulder, and just pushes him over the edge, because the symbiote kind of ties with your
your mentality.
and just twists him over the edge, kind of like we saw with Electro.
Little bit, yeah.
I mean, it was kind of cool how they did it with in his head. You can hear this kind of chanting of, everyone needs to kind of get payback for ignoring me all this time. So
Yeah.
why not have the symbiote do the same type of thing? But now we got a toxic symbiote that is worse than anything.
Yeah, just
Venom
cranks it up to 10.
Yeah.
Or cranks it up to 11.
Crank that shit up to 11.
Yeah, crank it up to 11. I like that. And the one thing I'm kind of going to alter a little bit is they could, and that's the interesting thing, they could say the Tom Holland Spider-Man, fuck it. This has nothing to do with him. This is continuing the story of the Amazing Spider-Man series, like you said. Then they can say they have the blood sample, because from the Amazing Spider-Man 1, they actually do have the sample, because Dr. Connors was working with Peter Parker to find a kind of an antidote for not just himself, but for you. Like, hey, we need to fix each other. I don't want to be a croc my entire life. And I know you don't want to be a spider your entire life. That kind of a thing was going on a little bit. So maybe they could say, oh, well, we have this sample from the doctor, and then we use that for the symbiote. The thing is, are they going to make Venom a villain from the beginning? And the most important thing, kind of looping back to, is, of course, you got to touch on the origin story in some way.
Yeah.
But how do you touch the origin story of Venom? Let's say it's Eddie Brock. Let's focus it down.
Yeah, let's just say Eddie Brock.
If it's Eddie Brock, how do you reference the origin story without necessarily making the entire film an origin story?
I'd say you would kind of, if we're not going to do Tom Holland, if we're not going to include Spider-Man, we're going to have little or no Spider-Man, you're kind of have to tweak the origin story. So we're not going to have him combining with Spider-Man, and then he's just going to kind of combine with Eddie Brock and go off that. If we're going to have at least some Spider-Man in there, then we can have some form of origin story that's relatable to what happened before. Otherwise, you kind of have this emulating Spider-Man type thing, and then something has to change in that perspective. If you have little to no Spider-Man. If we could include Spider-Man, we could probably kind of Spider-Man 3 it, throw it in there for a small part of the movie, and then have the symbiote move on to a new host for some odd reason.
I mean, to me, the one thing that I think how you do the origin story is we started out, Eddie Brock is already Venom. He is already Venom. You jump into that, and then you just have like kind of brief flashbacks, or you kind of tell the origin story through the flashbacks, and it's just like a few here just to get the viewer like, okay, I am up to speed with how he got it, without necessarily saying, hey, I'm Eddie Brock, I don't have it. You can jump in with him already as Venom and then kind of reference back. You don't even have to do flashbacks. You can just reference back to that origin story in conversations with other actors.
Or, I mean, you could have it that, like you said, he has it, or we can start off Eddie Brock getting the symbiote, because that might be a kind of cool concept.
Yeah, it could.
Like it infecting him in a sense, because I would say it's kind of like a parasite, yeah?
Mm-hmm. And the one thing, it is kind of like a parasite, and the one thing that I know many fans are kind of theorizing about is there's a movie coming out this year that kind of has that symbiote kind of attitude towards it. And it's a movie that was written by the producer of Deadpool. That's why Ryan Reynolds is in it. But it's a movie titled Life.
Yes.
And that movie has they go to space, they find, it kind of looks like a symbiote, Johnny.
It kind of does.
Is this one, and of course it's not going to, I'm just throwing it out there to be funny with it. Wouldn't it be hilarious if they tied this into that? Into that, basically.
It would be pretty cool to do that, because as you see in the previews, it does look kind of like the symbiote. Mm-hmm. I mean, not 100%, but yeah, it looks kind of like the symbiote, and it doesn't need to look like the symbiote from the cartoons, because we changed things to make it a little bit more Hollywood, a little bit more believable that it could be something like this. Mm-hmm. So to have that kind of tie in would be kind of funny, kind of cool. But yeah, since it's not Marvel, is it Sony? I don't know if Life is Sony.
I don't think it is Sony either.
I don't think it's Sony. So, I mean, to have it tie in would be kind of cool. It kind of just like where I'm looking for.
Just an homage? Is that the word you're looking for?
It's just kind of coincidence in a sense. But it would be cool to kind of like, hey, it looks like this. It kind of has a relatable backstory. So see Life, and why not?
Yeah, and I'm looking right now just kind of for like the similarities, and the only ones I'm seeing is I believe the director Espinosa is going to, I believe he's going to direct a Marvel or Fox movie in the future. If not, he's the director for something like Pirates or something like that. But I know that Paul Wernick is related to the Deadpool movie and the Deadpool franchise. And of course, Ryan Reynolds is related to that as well. It's a Columbia Pictures.
Okay.
So it's a Columbia Picture. It's not Sony. It's not 20th Century. It's not Sony Pictures. But before we wrap everything up, is there anything that you think we left off in the Venom theory before I really kick it to these guys to let us know what they think?
No, let's just go.
As Johnny looks over like, oh shit, they've been watching us this entire time.
That's right. Hey, you're still here.
What do you think, though? Anything we left off?
You know what? We can go Eddie Brock. We can go any
Scorpion.
Of the Scorpion. It would be interesting, but I feel like that's throwing too much at one time.
I haven't introduced him yet.
Yeah, exactly. You haven't had an ending movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Flash Thompson, maybe, but he's going to be in Spider-Man Homecoming, and we may want to pull away from that. So, I think Eddie Brock would be the best one to go with. Besides that, it's going to be interesting seeing how they throw the symbiote story if they're not going to have Spider-Man much, if at all, in there. And if we don't get Carnage, hopefully a Carnage after credit scene.
Please, Marvel, please,
Carnage.
Please give me Carnage. Like, this is
something.
You guys do not understand, like, the converse. Like, this hits home for me. Me and Dave have had this conversation of, a rated R film for a superhero would be so perfect to have Carnage in it.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I know with movies now, it's kind of like, we'll have a sequel and we'll put it in there. Please make this a Venom versus Carnage movie. Sony, I know you're watching. I know you love our videos. Please make this a Venom. Well, actually, why am I even talking to Sony? I should be talking to Scott and Jeff. Scott, Jeff, I know you're writing this right now. Please make this a Venom versus Carnage movie. I will, no matter what, you're getting my money, because I'm going to throw my money and go to this movie. But please, I'll see it twice. I'll see it twice if Carnage is in it. I'll throw my money at you.
He'll buy your
twice.
merchandise too.
I'll throw it at you twice. Please make this a Venom versus Carnage movie. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know down below in the comment section. You can let us know on Twitter. You can let us know on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you are. Let us know what you think. What are your theories about this film? What do you want to see them do? How would you tackle the origin story of Venom without making the entire movie an origin story for Venom? Let us know down in the comment section down below.
Thank you everyone for watching the Rick and Johnny podcast. Click right here to watch another squanchy video, and let's get rickety wrecked!